Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: IU Health Southern Indiana physicians, primary care and specialty care providers now accepting new patients in Bloomington and throughout South Central Indiana. siphysicians.org. The IU School of Education, preparing teachers, scholars, and administrators to improve teaching and learning in Indiana and around the world. More at education.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Indiana University Alumni Association, linking IU's network of over 650,000 alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships and volunteer opportunities. alumni.iu.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. As Bloomington faces rapid growth, city leaders want more control over developments built downtown. But some say the city isn't giving the public enough time to respond to the new proposal.
We are all about integrity of the process and transparency in government.
An expert joins us to talk about the implications of the House and Senate tax plans. What does it all mean for the average Hoosier? We'll break it down coming up. And there are more than 5,000 craft breweries in the U.S. today, and the growing industry needs qualified workers.
The people knocking on the door to come in and work have no experience.
Ahead, how a new program is working to fill the skills gap. Those stories, plus the latest news headlines from across the state, right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. GOP lawmakers are working to meet the president's deadline to reconcile differences between the Senate and House tax bills before Christmas. The Senate approved its version of the bill early Saturday morning. Democrat Joe Donnelly opposed it, while Todd Young voted with his colleagues in favor of the plan. This week, protesters gathered outside of Young's Indianapolis office. They're angry because they say the tax plan will disproportionately benefit the wealthy.
When we fight, we win.
A small group of demonstrators gathered to protest the GOP lawmakers' vote on the Senate tax bill. The demonstrators stood outside the federal courthouse with signs, sending in a few people at a time to talk to Young's office. Tom Sullivan says he was turned away and was told the office didn't have the staff to facilitate talking to constituents.
Sometimes Todd's staff does go out of their way to speak with us. At other times, it's like they have erected a different version of Trump's wall, and it's between Todd and the people of Indiana.
The senator's office issued a statement in response to protesters' claims, saying they did not turn anyone away. Well, here to help us understand what the tax code changes could mean is Bradley Haim, an Indiana University professor and an expert on tax policy. Brad, thanks for being here today. So generally, let's talk a little bit about what the tax change could mean for Hoosiers.
Yeah, so on average, Hoosiers are going to get a tax cut. Most Hoosiers will get a tax cut from this tax law. And that's due to both the House and the Senate versions, lower tax rates, increase the standard deduction, and increase the child tax credit.
So will any of that expire and then Hoosiers will have to pay more in the coming years?
So it depends on which way they go. So in the House bill, all of the individual tax provisions are permanent. In the Senate bill, all of those provisions end after 2025. And so if Congress doesn't extend it, things will go back to the way they are currently.
So, everyone, has the same question. What does this mean for me? Is there a simple way to calculate, for people to understand how this will affect them?
Well, so as I said, most people will get a tax cut. There are some people whose taxes may increase, though, and that is due to the fact that both the Senate and the House bills also remove the personal exemption and they limit or remove a bunch of different deductions. And so if you're a family who has a lot of kids, you're a larger family, or you claim a lot of deductions currently, then you might be in the group that might face a tax increase.
So you mentioned some of these deductions. What are the most that Hoosiers claim, and will any of those go away?
So the three most popular deductions are the charitable giving deduction, so that stays the same in both the bills. The home mortgage interest deduction, for most people that'll stay the same unless you have a very large house with a very large mortgage. That gets limited a little bit. The big changes for the state and local tax deduction. So currently you can deduct your income or sales and property taxes. They're getting rid of the income and sales tax deduction part.
Farm Bureau came out in support of the tax changes. How does this benefit them?
So there are a few provisions that specifically might help farmers. So the estate tax is either eliminated or reduced. Increased expensing is allowed in both the House and the Senate bills. There's also something called the pass-through business income tax provision that limits the amount of taxes that would have to be paid if you get income through a pass-through business, and farmers that are individual farmers would get their income that way.
We just have a few seconds left. That same pass-through business benefit, would that impact a lot of small businesses too?
It might. So if you have a business and you're taxed under the individual income tax code, both the Senate and the House bills limit the amount that you'd have to, or the tax rate that you'd owe. The flip side of that is that it encourages people to change other types of income to pass-through income in order to take advantage of those lower rates.
All right, have to leave it there. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Now for headlines, we go over to Barbara Brosier, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. While the national pay gap between men and women is shrinking, Indiana's is getting worse. A report released today shows it increased by 2% from 2015 to 2016.
Research from the Indiana Institute for Working Families shows full-time male workers in Indiana earn, on average, nearly $13,000 more than their female counterparts every year. That's a 26% difference, and it can have long-term consequences. Working women are less likely to own homes or businesses than men, and they have a harder time saving for retirement and paying off student loans. So it shouldn't be surprising to learn Hoosier women experience poverty more often than men. But a policy analyst for the Institute says the rate at which it happens is staggering.
That was a stat that, honestly, I looked up 6 or 7 times because I just found it to be so extreme. We have nearly 40% of single mothers experiencing poverty, and in some counties, more than 50%.
The size of the pay gap changes depending on where in Indiana you live, too. Porter, Jasper, Warren, Warwick, Brown, and DeKalb all have gaps nearing 40%. Experts say that illustrates a need for state legislation addressing the disparities, like strengthening equal pay rules and raising the minimum wage.
I think the state has really sought to be business friendly and is beginning to realize that it needs to also focus on being worker friendly, and I would argue on being women friendly.
Now, the pay gap is even wider for minority groups in Indiana. Black and biracial women experience an average gap of 36%, while Latinas see a 44% difference. Despite opposition, the State Board of Education approved a rewrite this week of the high school graduation requirements. The new plan is intended to let students choose a college or career-focused academic track. School leaders, teachers, and parents associations are the strongest opponents, while businesses and higher ed are big supporters.
And that many of our students who are continuing their education on the college were actually never finishing, and many of those were ending up with debt and no degree.
In addition to getting a high school diploma, students must prove job skills and earn a credential, certificate, or reach a predetermined score set by the state on a standardized test. Students can also graduate by earning an honors diploma. The Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council says it will fight any attempt to legalize marijuana. Council attorneys question marijuana's medical use and instead call it a gateway drug.
You know, so if there's research out there that says it's okay to smoke pot and it's healthy, and it's good for you, I'd like to see it. That's real research and not anecdotal or an opinion or a survey of marijuana smokers.
Powell says it has created dangerous, unstable markets in Colorado where marijuana is legal. Deer hunting is down this season, and that's reducing the potential number of samples the Department of Natural Resources can get to test for chronic wasting disease. The fatal deer disease hasn't made its way to Indiana, but officials here are on alert after it was found just across the western border in Illinois.
Yeah, hunters actually wind up being an extremely important partner when it comes to managing chronic wasting disease. And so in other states, hunters are called upon to help us do surveillance by bringing us their deer so we can test them.
Chronic wasting disease cannot be killed with antibiotics. According to the CDC, it can take more than a year before infected animals begin to show symptoms. But during that time, the deer can pass the disease on to other animals. There's no evidence that it harms humans. So, Joe, certainly something to keep an eye on as the deer hunting season progresses.
And those who actually are hunting, take some samples in too.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Barbara. The city of Bloomington is experiencing rapid growth, but some residents don't like what they see popping up downtown. Mayor John Hamilton has announced a proposal that would give planning leaders more discretion when reviewing development projects. Lindsay Wright joins me now with more.
Thanks, Joe. If approved, the ordinance wouldn't allow any structures over 3 stories to automatically be approved. That's the key word, automatically. Anything higher than 3 stories would get a more thorough review to make sure it fits well with the city based on 3 categories. That's design, the environmental impact, and affordability. But one group in the community has spoken out against the proposal, saying it jumps the gun on a certain process that should be followed.
Matt O'Neill is cooking up a meal in the place he thinks is unlike any other. O'Neill bought the Runcible spoon in 2001, but the restaurant has been a Bloomington staple since the 70s. It's known for its unique dining experience.
I inherited this place. I inherited something really magical that I admired as a customer before I ever bought it.
O'Neill says the spoon is a reflection of Bloomington, a community he says has a special charm. But with the number of buildings going up lately, he's worried the old school charm could disappear.
It's just amazing. You look around and it's happening very quickly.
The U.S. Census Bureau estimates Bloomington's population has grown by nearly 15,000 people in the last decade. All you have to do is take a look at the city's changing downtown to see the impact. City leaders here are approving an increasing number of development petitions compared to the last few years.
The question is, how do we steer it to evolve in good ways, sensitive, creative ways that will build value and create the new Bloomington for the next generation of people.
Hamilton's administration wants to change the city's Unified Development Code. Here's how it would work. If developers want to construct a building that's higher than 3 stories or above a certain number of units, their proposals would be subject to additional scrutiny. But if the developer's proposals fall within those new parameters, the Plan Commission has to approve it. And that's been an issue in the past. Take, for example, Urban Station 2. It's a mixed-use development that includes retail space and apartments. Several city residents spoke out against that project, but the Plan Commission approved it in November.
We can't legally say, we just don't like your design, go away. Because they can sue us, and they can say this is discriminatory.
City officials say updating the code would allow for more control over what's being built. At the same time, that doesn't mean all large developments would be halted.
But we're not saying don't build a 40-foot building or 50 building. It's just a 50-foot building. It's just saying if you're going to do that substantial building, we need to be sure it's done right. So there's a little more review, and that's kind of working toward this new chapter.
That new chapter is a comprehensive master plan that's expected to be approved in January, which leaders say is long overdue. The city hasn't approved a new version in 15 years. Ann Bono is the interim president and CEO of the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. She says the city typically adopts a master plan before changing the development code to align with its vision.
The city administration is taking one piece of the Unified Development Ordinance that they don't agree with and updating it instead of really following through on this process that was discussed.
Bono says the Chamber of Commerce represents nearly 900 businesses in the city. She says they were never notified about the proposal despite being active in the master plan process. Now, she says there's not much time for public input before a final vote is taken.
We do not want to see anything that tries to pass, quietly or quickly. It's really important to engage, stakeholders, engage the public.
Hamilton says adopting the changes now would prevent developers from rushing to get projects approved before the city enacts more long-term rules. And O'Neill supports that move. He says Bloomington still has that magic he felt 30 years ago, but the key, he says, is to preserve it.
If you put these buildings up, at least try to make them somehow have their antenna plugged into the community. Let them reflect what's going on in the community. Let the architecture reflect that.
And Lindsay Wright is back with more. This is really interesting that the City Commerce Council came out against that original proposal from the mayor, and usually you would think they would come out together in support of something.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and they have several concerns, not that it just doesn't follow the typical process. They say it opens up the door for the city to approve developments based on affordable housing provisions. The city even says in the proposal that they want to steer the housing market toward non-students and affordable options. These are some of the challenges that college towns face, trying to maintain the character of the city and neighborhoods as it grows. Take State College in Pennsylvania as an example. Development officials there say they've updated their code to lay out clear incentives. So as an example, if a developer offers a certain number of affordable housing options, they could get an extra story in height. So there's really no room for negotiating or for discretion. I think that's what the Chamber of Commerce here is concerned about. And the city says these changes proposed would be temporary. So maybe in future changes, it would be more straightforward of what can and can't be built. But the Chamber also mentioned that who knows if it actually will be temporary.
All right, thank you very much, Lindsay.
You're welcome.
Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. A program is helping the growing number of would-be brewers get the skills and knowledge they need. Plus, it's got a new roof and the Seiberling Mansion is open and all decked out for the season. We'll go on a tour. Coming up right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
The WTIU-WFYI News Team connects Indiana to the world. We bring you the top news of the day on radio, TV, and online. We round up the stories that have people talking each week and dig deep into the issues that affect your community the most. The WTIU-WFYI News Team is where you are and telling your story.
$10,000.
15? 15, you think?
20, 21,000?
600.
20. 18.5.
24.
It's at least 40.
Look at it.
4,500,000.
650.
20.
650.
This textile would be worth about $500,000.
$500,000?
No way.
I knew it. It's just a blanket.
Laying on the back of a chair. Well, sir, you have a national treasure.
Wow.
A national treasure. Congratulations.
I can't believe this.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. The number of craft breweries in Indiana has nearly tripled since 2011, and an increasing number of people are hoping to make a career out of the growing industry. But only a small number actually have the skills necessary to land a job, brewing beer, or running a tap room. As Barbara Brosier reports, a new class aims to change that.
Many of the cars driving along West Main Street in Bloomfield are just passing through.
We all grew up in Bloomfield. And over the last, 30 years, we've seen a lot of businesses leave town.
What may have been the longest running business in town closed its doors after nearly 80 years last October.
Last fall, I guess, this building was still an operating feed store. J.D. Holtzclaw and his family had operated the place since 1938.
But soon, something new will open in its place.
We're going down the ramp into what used to be the area where they had all the bait and feed.
Steve Corbin and his wife are stripping the building down to reveal its bare brick walls and decades-old windows. They plan to open a brewery here within the next year. They're calling it Feed Store Beer Company, in homage to the building's history.
I remember always coming in, JD'd be sitting on a stool behind the counter, right over here kind of in front of this window, and you'd put your Yoo-hoo or your chips or whatever up on the counter and pay him, and he'd have a few little jokes to make and send you on your way. So our idea is actually to still have the bar right here, right where JD had his counter.
It's an ambitious venture for a couple with no background in the industry. So the Corbins participated in a new program at Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis to try and prepare themselves for the job. It's one of several courses craft brewery consultant and educator Ron Smith teaches.
So a lot of times in Germany you will have a Weizenbier.
The 7-day Essentials of Brewery Operations Certificate program is a crash course in everything from world beer styles to the legal issues that need to be considered when running a brewery.
We do focus pretty heavily on brew deck, actual brewing operations, but we also get into cellaring and packaging and sanitation issues and lab processes and tests and quality control stuff and tap room operations.
The course is designed to give students a step up when it comes to getting a job in craft beer, which is an exploding industry in Indiana. According to the Brewers Association, craft breweries have a $1.3 billion economic impact in the state. Sun King Brewing Company is one of the largest, not only in Indiana, but the entire country.
We started off from 0 beers to this year we're going to do about 38,000 barrels in total production. That puts us in the top 100 of craft breweries in the United States.
The increase in production and distribution means Sun King's workforce is growing. Colt says they have a total of about 100 full-time and part-time employees, but when positions open up, the brewery struggles to get qualified applicants.
When we're looking to hire, we usually do that from within because there isn't a whole lot out there. When you have a few thousand to 5,000 to growing to 7,000 different breweries, there's gonna be a lot of absorption, and so there isn't a whole lot of folks out there ready-made with the knowledge.
Colt says many people don't understand some of the basic mechanics that go into brewing, so he's hopeful courses like IUPUI's can address the skills gap and give breweries a larger pool of potential employees.
It allows you to get a taste of, is this something I really want to get into? Because most people think, casually like, hey, it's fun being a brewer because you sit around and drink beer all day. And really what you're doing is a whole lot of cleaning and fixing and prepping.
The course was nothing short of life-changing for Stacy and Steve. It helps them come up with a more viable business plan for their brewery and develop a passion for a wider range of beer styles.
When I first went into the class, I was just thinking I'll maybe learn how to brew beer and help out. Didn't realize how many aspects of owning a brewery there actually was.
They're hopeful that extra knowledge will translate into success for their future brewery.
We wanted to see something else good coming to the community, give something back to the community, be able to create jobs in the community, and bring people here for more than just passing through.
It's a business they'd like to see stay open just as long as the one that came before it. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Barbara Brozier.
The IUPUI course isn't designed for people who want to open a brewery, but for anyone who wants to learn more about the industry. The owners of Feed Store Beer Company hope to open their brewery during the first quarter of next year. And if you need a dose of holiday cheer, put Kokomo Seiberling Mansion on your Christmas list. The community has a lot of pride in the mansion and rallied recently to save it. They raised nearly $500,000 for a new roof. The construction is wrapping up just in time for the holidays. Christmas time at the Seiberling Mansion is more than a tradition.
This building represents the heart of Kokomo and Howard County.
Hobson says more than 50 volunteers spent 2 weeks transforming 15 rooms and a grand ballroom into a holiday spectacle.
The lights are just incredible. The number of them are uncountable. It's magic to see someone walk through the door and go, oh, or sigh, or little kids run up to the Santa Clauses that are all over and go, Mommy, it's Santa.
The ornate mahogany woodwork and Victorian elegance complements the endless greenery, lights, ornaments, and surprises.
The third floor is magical. It has a train set on it that is moving and whistling and going through little towns.
Hobson estimates the historic mansion will host about 700 wide-eyed spectators every night.
As soon as I get over being tired after doing this for 12 days straight, I will be very excited.
Just the fact the event is happening is something to celebrate. A couple years ago, the mansion's future was uncertain. The roof was in bad shape. It was leaking and causing a lot of damage. Volunteers rallied and raised $400,000 for a new roof. Construction is taking a few weeks longer than expected after workers discovered areas that needed more attention.
The people who are working on the roof are surprised we don't have more damage. The roof is 126 years old. This is the original slate roof.
But the project is almost complete, and the only thing visitors might notice is that some of the scaffolding is still up around the building. Brown says depending on the weather, the roof should be done within the next 2 weeks. As always, much more at WTIU-News.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: IU Health Southern Indiana physicians, primary care and specialty care providers now accepting new patients in Bloomington and throughout South Central Indiana. siphysicians.org. The IU School of Education, preparing teachers, scholars, and administrators to improve teaching and learning in Indiana and around the world. More at education.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber, the Giga City Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Indiana University Alumni Association, linking IU's network of over 650,000 alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships and volunteer opportunities. alumni.iu.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.